Hey, today I want to talk about how I knew OTR trucking wasn't for me. So without further ado, let's get started. So some of you who have been keeping up with me know that I started my trucking journey as an OTR bulk driver. In this video, I want to explain how I knew this was not going to be a long-term thing for me. So when I first started with the Orange Mega, I never had any real intention of being an over-the-road driver long-term. I'll be clear on that. The goal was to secure the CDL and make a little cash in the process. The OTR bulk tanker position with Schneider was my only entry into the industry in my mind. I wasn't coming out of pocket for school, I couldn't do the grant thing, and I was not going to be held to a long 2-year contract with other companies like CR England, Swift, Roll, etc. The thought of being OTR for that amount of time was unsettling to me. The cool thing with Schneider is that the contract was only 9 months, and also being able to transfer divisions after 3 months of service, which I did. Only thing about that is good transfer opportunities are extremely scarce. The amount of luck I had transferring onto my current account at the time I got it was astronomical. Coming into this, however, I came in with the full expectation of riding the 9-month journey being OTR. Felt like I was up for the challenge, but only because there was no going back and there was no way I was paying back the company by not holding up my contract obligations. I thought it was fair deal. I give them 9 months of service or more and they get me a license I can have forever that can help me get middle-class type money. So going into this being a rookie, you typically always hear about being gone weeks and weeks at a time. But with being a bulk tanker for Schneider, you're typically out for 11 days and back for 3 days for your home time. Or, if you want, be gone longer, which I thought was manageable. The being gone for periods of time affects people differently depending on circumstances and whatnot. Me personally, I have no kids and I'm introverted as hell. But I do, however, have a wife, but I made it work as far as always keeping contact with her and sending her my location whenever I took my resets. And there were times we would go to sleep on the phone with each other and she would call and wake me up when my 10 hours were up to start my drive shift. More couples should probably take this approach more with their significant other. Maybe infidelity in trucking wouldn't be so prevalent, but to me, you have to know the person you're with ultimately. If your woman was riding with you back when you were working at Tim's Towel Racks and manufacturing, palletizing boxes and shit, you don't have to question the loyalty as much. If you got the woman in the middle of your trucking journey, just be vigilant and keep track of patterns, is all I'm going to say on that. Luckily for me, I had peace of mind. I never had a thought in my head my woman was going to pound town while I was traveling to Pottstown. You guys who have families, young families especially, shout out to you. I don't know if I can miss precious moments and have my newborn stranger radar going off whenever I hold him or her when I come back for home time. That's tough. Sorry for the rambling. But basically, I knew the shit wasn't for me, having to deal with the uncertainty or going into the unknown, going to truck stops, the stress of running into DOT, and the shitty pay. People say they like the adventure of it and seeing new things, but me personally don't really care too much for it. After you drive for a while, you realize most of this country is just made up of grass and trees if you're not driving in inner cities, and everything starts to look the same anyway. Of course, you've got the different terrain, but that's added stress. The thought of mountain driving an 80,000-pound semi gives you boy the shivers. I drove on one in the Chattanooga area, heading to Georgia from Tennessee. It went okay, but it was still unsettling. And I hated driving through Pennsylvania when I went through training and when I became solo. Dealing with curves and the steep downgrades, I wasn't really with it. It's pretty crazy to me how fast these companies are willing to send a driver who is fresh off training state to run their equipment. You would think that would be something they would ease you into. You would think they would start you off regional or something to get you comfortable. Imagine too, I was only operating 37 east of the Mississippi. I didn't even have to see all the treacherous shit the West Coast has to offer as far as mountains. I didn't even do it long enough to experience the rough East Coast trucking areas like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, or West Virginia either. But I'd imagine I wouldn't want any parts based on the shit I heard. Another thing about the unknown is just when you actually get to these places, you don't know what the hell the setup is like. Luckily for tankers, there's not a lot of shippers you have to go to where you have to do these weird back-ends to get loaded. It was mostly pull straight in, but unloading varies. You might come across some weird shit once in a while, but nothing too crazy, like offsetting in the middle of traffic or trying to maneuver around an obstacle course. All the places are different as far as rules, organization, and timing. Some have more traffic than others as well. It helps to use Google Satellite to get a good pre-visual of what to expect. Not all places you can see on Google, unfortunately. Another thing about OTR I didn't really like was going to truck stops. These shits were always loaded with trucks whenever I completed my drive shifts and needed resets. As I mentioned before, backing is my kryptonite. I absolutely hated having to back in these tight-ass spaces at these places. And, a lot of times I found myself doing it in the dark, which made it more difficult. With Schneider having OCs, there will be times where I would try to get to OCs if they were en route to my destination. Or with Tanker, you have the luxury to overnight park at the Koala washes as well. But I was a poor pre-planner, so I had to often settle for the nearby truck stops. But yeah, there was a time where I tried to back into a spot at a small pilot somewhere in Oklahoma, and I was holding up traffic with all the pull-ups and adjusting I was doing. Someone tried helping me, but with how I set it up and the space given, it made sense for me to pull out and attempt the back in again. But I didn't attempt it again, however. I was getting honked at and got dirty looks from drivers when I pulled out of the lot. Yeah, pretty embarrassing. I didn't think there was any point in attempting to take the spot again because I figured somebody was just going to take the spot I was trying to take by the time I came back around anyway. So I just went to another place up the street. It was tight as well, but it had less traffic, so I was able to complete the back in more peacefully. Not gonna lie, there were times where I pulled into spots at truck stops instead of backing in. Don't recommend doing this. It can be difficult leaving when it's time to go. I thought this would avoid the whole awkward rookie trying to back into a spot, but it actually looks more awkward when you pull in. It screams, I can't back for shit or I'm a rookie, especially when you pull in and you're still crooked. I was always a proponent of rest areas. Yeah, they don't have the amenities of your typical truck stop, but they are easier to maneuver around in and more peaceful. There's no need to back whatsoever, which means your chances of hearing a loud bang and feeling your truck rock while you're asleep is decreased. Having that peace to me beats having Pilot Pizza or the other overpriced shit they sell. I couldn't stand how fast these truck stops filled up. A lot of them would be full by 4 p.m. I went to Pilot a lot just because that's where the company wanted me to go anyway. A lot of Pilot's layouts I've been to are terrible and shouldn't have semis touching their lots. There were times where I would park in one of those reserved parking spots and didn't pay. I would try using the app to pay, but it would never go through, so I would just say fuck it and pray I don't hear knocks on my door later at night. That was always a fear for me too. I never wanted to be parked somewhere, be at the peak of my sleep, and hear loud-ass knocks on my door for whatever reason. I don't think I would have ever addressed the knocking, but still. There was only one time where I parked where I wasn't supposed to. It was a Casey's gas station that didn't have overnight parking in Illinois, but I actually asked the place for permission beforehand. I only did it because my DOT clock was going down and the GPS sent me the fuck off when I was trying to get to a rest area. I never wanted to wake up with boots on my truck or getting my truck towed. That leads to heavy tow fees that the company won't pay for. And they say that it goes against you on your CSA. A lot of Walmarts are now getting trucks booted nowadays because a lot of truckers have no decency and have messed it up for the masses. My advice for you when you're going to truck stops is to look up reviews and to also use Google Satellite to see layouts and parking beforehand. The Google reviews can be helpful and might prevent you from wasting your time, but like I said before, I'm more of a rest area guy. If you can get to a rest area before a truck stop, let it be that and park up, especially if there are spaces available. Just have food on standby, because again, there's no food to buy, but snacks at vending machines if they even have them. Another realization I knew OTR wasn't for me was dealing with the stress of DOT. Listen, I don't even like the stress of dealing with it now that I'm local and haul scrap. Imagine hazardous materials in a tanker going state to state. Don't get me wrong, I never felt like I gave DOT any reason to give me static, but just driving that tanker just always had me feel like I had pull me over and inspect me, written big as hell on my truck just because I drove hazmat tanker. It's weird though, because when I actually did get inspected for the first and only time in Ohio, I felt I had nothing to worry about. Rightfully so, because I did pass. But man, it's just too much shit to worry about with the logs and your equipment's condition. I was just glad tankers don't have to worry about moving tandems when it comes to the load's weight, and mostly all the shippers conveniently had scales. So being overweight was never really going to be a thing for me. But yeah, make no mistake, when you hop in this trucking shit, understand, DOT plays the real role of your boss, and the company you work for is the manager. The leniency just varies company to company on what you can have on record. With Schneider, I didn't want to give them a chance. I hear they fire you for the smallest infractions. Working for them, you really get the walking on eggshells type of feel, especially as a rookie. Just glad they don't have inward-facing cameras. That would be bogus as hell. But when you're out there, just be careful, drive safe, and make sure your logs are on point. And if you drive hazmat, make sure you have your placards, your ERG, and make sure the route you're driving on isn't hazmat restricted. You don't want smoke with those fines. You know why? Because the pay is dookie. Driving OTR as a rookie, you have to accept getting sexually assaulted financially while dealing with all the stress the job already brings, while also, at the same time, adjusting to the lifestyle. The consistency of the checks were horrendous. You'll see a $900 check one week just to see a $400 check the next. A big reason for that is the loads not being there. There were times where I sat for days waiting for something. I tried to keep looking at the big picture by just telling myself that I'm in it for the experience. But I would always think about the risk, the dangers, and the sacrifices. I know I wasn't going to get a ton of money coming into this, but when you actually go through the experience and get a check in real time, it hits you in a way that'll make you question life itself. There really should be federally mandatory base pay for doing OTR. I mean, they federally regulate everything else, but knowing these companies, they'll probably find some type of loophole to get out of paying the base. OTR isn't for the faint at heart. There are times when you do this and it feels like the universe is against you, like randomly getting stuck in traffic when your clock is ticking, when the truck stop is loaded when you're exhausted, or when a tire wants to blow out on you cause, why not, right? And imagine, a lot of y'all are gone months at a time. With me being married, the lack of sex on the road would be added frustration. I can't do the lot lizard thing. Even if I wasn't married, I don't think I'd hit any of them. I can't fuck what I can't trust. Never been in my nature for real. But of course, it's not all bad. I found driving long distance to be relaxing at times. Just having on my podcast, listening to music, or just having my own thoughts kept me at peace. Safely parking somewhere, going off duty, and having a meal did feel rewarding. The rest I would get in my truck would always feel well-deserved too. At the beginning, you're going to feel so good for completing loads. It has the feeling of beating a long, tough mission in a video game. Other than that, I can't really say anything else that I liked. Of course, you have the freedom. That's always going to beat the managers being up your ass or dealing with the politics working at traditional labor jobs. I do feel like if I were to do it longer, I would have gotten better or got put in a really fucked up situation that would have put my CDL in jeopardy. No in between. Protecting your CDL is a 24/7, 365 job. When you're OTR, it feels like you're tight-roping with it more than doing any other driving gig. Hell, I debated with myself on which I'd rather do between going OTR or doing public transportation. I've done both and still can't really pick which I'd rather do. A lot of people will say you're not a real trucker if you're not OTR. You can miss me with all that bullshit. The real trucker title is overrated as hell, and not to mention an illusion. We're all DOT regulated, we all deal with traffic, and a lot of us are getting fucked by our companies. I much prefer the title of simply being a driver. It's fitting, considering I don't like doing most things that come with being a trucker anyway. I would definitely go back to some CDLB shit if the pay and the schedule fits. It's crazy to think I thought about going flatbed with TMC and being OTR. Bro, the thought of doing all that securing, driving long distance to have to unsecure all the shit once you get to the consignee makes me nauseous and pisses me off. And the paranoia of the loads not really being secure and shifting would eat me alive. But at least the pay is livable, I suppose. But yeah, I just wanted to share my thoughts with you guys on OTR trucking from my perspective. If you're doing it for a certain goal, good luck, and I hope you have an accident-free journey so you can meet the goal comfortably. If you're doing this because you actually enjoy it, hope you have a prosperous and safe career. As always, stay safe and see you in the next one.